All right, now as we get started today, I'm going to, for lack of better words, plant an idea inside of your heads I want you to think about. We'll come back to this tomorrow, and that is next week we're going to be starting on React. Now, do you think it would help to continue on with a project, with a blog project, but add React to it, or would you rather just go into something brand new? You don't need to give me any comments right now, all right? But think about that. I mean, I guess there's pluses and minuses to both, all right? But just think about what you think about it, etc. And we'll talk about it a little bit tomorrow morning or tomorrow afternoon, I guess. All right. Now, we had problems yesterday. I had problems. The internet had problems, etc. But I've tried to get my stuff together today, and I guess we're going to see whether or not I did. So the first thing I'd like you to do is to bring up the store user. I think I got the wrong one up here. The store user controller. All right, I'd like you to bring up the store user controller.js file, and I want the whole thing. Let me open this up. I'm going to open up the store post too. Okay. All right. So we're going to start making changes to the store user controller file. All right. Okay. So that looks good. That looks good. Again, I don't think we need the path, but it doesn't really matter that much one way or the other. All right. So error, const validation errors. Let me get that moved. There we go. I'm going to wrap this. Remember, this is all one line. We talked about that yesterday. That's no big thing. All right. Now, I'm going to come in and I'm going to add one line of code in here. Right now, this line of code is, for lack of better words, this is handling our errors. All right. But we're going to put in one more line of code right underneath this, which is req.flash data req.body. What we would like to get to is if the user comes in and tries to set up a new user, but for some reason doesn't totally put in all of the information, and they come back to the page, we'd like them to have the information they did put in to stay there. Does what I'm saying make sense to you? All right. So the line that we added was this one right here. Questions on any of that? All right. Again, we've talked about this before, that you're coming in here and you're attempting to store a brand new user. If everything's cool, you just redirect to the home page. They're not logged in yet, but we were able to create a new user. If there's any kind of problem, we're handling it in here. We're keeping all of their information, and that's what's in here. We are going to tell them any errors that they had, and that's in here. And we're pushing them right back to the actual register page itself. All right? Questions on that? Does that make sense to everybody? All right. So I'm going to do a file save. And that should be it as far as what we need to do on this one. Now, again, because we had some problems yesterday, I'm doing some, for lack of better words, kind of some review, because I want to make sure we're all at the same place. Now, on the auth register thing, so what I'd like us to do next is to open up the register.ejs file. All right, so under views, I'd like us to go to register.ejs, which is a pretty big file. All right. And I gave you this stuff yesterday. We had some problems with it, but it should be working just fine. So if you don't have it, and I'm not sure if you do or not, but right up above the form action, we added this yesterday. So I'm keeping that there so at least everybody has a chance to see it. Again, that is saying if we had any error messages, that what we want to do is we want to list them out one at a time in an unordered list. Does that make sense to everyone? All right, so hopefully, does everybody have that from yesterday? Okay, good. All right.
There's one thing that's going on with me. When I try to open up the register page, gives me an error.
Okay, well, I'll tell you what, why don't we'll go on and we'll try to look at it during the break, okay?
I'll follow along.
Okay. All right. So this should handle either us not having a valid username or thus not having a valid password. But we talked about this yesterday, that we also want to be able to handle the duplicate user. So again, you may have put this in yesterday, you may not have. All right? But one of the things that we added yesterday was this unique validator. So if you did not do that yesterday, if you did not, all right, I'm just going to stop my run here and I'm going to show you the command that you should be putting in then. And that was npm I mongoose -unique -validator. If you put that in yesterday, great. And if you didn't put that in yesterday, please put that in right now. All right? So I'm taking for granted then that everybody's got that put in. Great. All right. So let me clear and let me start this back. Oops. Start that back up again. There we go. All right. Okay. Now, one thing yesterday, I don't believe we do need this line in server.js. We only need it, I believe, in our model files. So I think you can take this line and either remove it or at a minimum, if you want to be sure, just comment it out. I think it'll be just fine without it inside of server.js. All right. So the next thing we did was we went out and I'm going to close this. I'm trying to not have everything in the world open here. So, all right. So the next thing that we did yesterday was we went out to models. All right. And under models, we brought up the user model. Then we did put in this line. All right, so if you don't have that line, make sure you put it in, okay? All right. Now, one thing about yesterday, if you'd please look on the screen, I think I screwed up yesterday, but make sure yours looks like this. I think yesterday I had the unique thing is where I had true, please enter a unique username. No, it should be under the required, not under the unique. So make sure that yours both look like this, all right, and change it accordingly if you have to do so. All right, remember, as it says there, both of those fields are required. So if we leave them off, that's the message that should come up. You could change that message to anything you wanted it to be, but it should be something that does alert the user to what the problem was. All right? Okay, does all that make sense? Then underneath that, we added this. So if you didn't put that in yesterday, put that in right now. That was userschema.plugin unique validator. If you got it in, great. All right, so I'm going to do a file and I'm going to do a save here. All right, now I'm going to go back to the program itself and I'm going to refresh it right here and I'm going to attempt to create a new user. When I do that, I'm going to click send and notice what I get. Please enter a unique username. Please enter a password. So I got my errors. Now, if you run it and you don't get them, well then something is amiss, so to speak, between what I've shown you and what you put in. But you should be able to go in there and do that now. And again, as you know, this could be formatted in different ways, so we probably could make it look a lot nicer. It's totally fine the way it is. All right? All right, one of the things that's, quote, wrong with this, unquote, is we're going to fix that in just a bit. So I'm going to refresh this again, and now I'm going to come in, and I've already got a user named Jeff with a password named Jeff. So I put in Jeff again, all right, and I'm clicking send. And now notice I get error, expected username to be unique, value Jeff. All right, so I was able to handle 3 different error conditions right there. One where I put in no password, one where I put in no username, one where I put in a duplicate username. Now, if you're following along and if for some reason, you think, I'm doing everything and I don't know why, but I've got it different, I get an error, I get this. Again, when we finish today, I'm again going to go and push this thing out, and you're welcome to go grab it if you want to do so. All right. Now, again, because right now the errors, look at this once. So this is a new user, right? So I'm going to come in here, I'm just going to make a new user. So I'm going to say Bob and Bob, and Bob. So I don't believe I have a new user named Bob in there. Maybe I did, but I don't think I did. So, I guess I did. Expected user, I guess I did. Okay. Mary. And Mary. Okay? So, send. All right. And again, it at least appears as though everything is okay. When you get this stuff, it's because they're just telling you you don't have a very good password in there, okay? All right. But if I log in now, I should be able to log in for Mary and Mary. And it looks like I'm in. Now, as of right now, it's showing everything, which we don't want. We're going to fix that in just a little bit. All right. Now, one of the things, and like I said, this was right around the time yesterday when things started going bad, so to speak. And what I had shown you, but I don't know if we really looked at it at all, was going out to npm. You don't have to do this. npmjs.com. And I'm going to come out here, and I'm going to type in here, connect flash. All right. And there it is. Okay, there's the line, so if you do need it, that's it right there. As it says, it's a special area of the session used for storing messages. But messages, it says, are written to the flash and cleared after being displayed. So the idea is, yeah, you've got to give the user that information, but you don't want that information, because it's error information, to hang around if the user puts in good data. All right? So if you didn't do that yesterday, and I think that I did, but I'm going to double check, then do an npm I connect -flash. If you already did it, great. All right. But again, I'm coming back here, and I'm going to check in mine. So I'm going to go back to my server. There it is, const flash equals require connect flash. All right. Plus under our app.use, at the bottom, you want to put this, make sure this is above this asterisk here. That should be the last thing that's in there. But I've got an app.use flash. All right. Any questions on anything? Everybody is totally caught up. Am I correct? Good. All right. Okay. So I'm just going to do a file save here, and I'm going to close this. All right. Now, we want to go over to our user model that's in here, the one that we were at before. All right, we're going to go in and we're going to, well, let's see. We've got the unique validator. We've got the true. Okay. We put in the plugin. That's good. Save. Const user equal this. I'm just double checking my own notes here. All right. Const user equal one. That looks real good. Okay. If that's what yours looks like, good. All right. If you're missing anything that's in here, this is your chance to put it in, double check, and make sure it's there, etc. All right. So that's the first part, and then there's the second part. All right, so again, I'm taking for granted. Everybody is totally caught up. Everybody is with me right now. Good. All right. Next, I'm going to close this, and we're going to open up, under our controllers, the new user controller, which currently looks like this. All right? We're going to put a bunch of stuff up above this in just a second. All right, plus we're going to make some changes in here. But let me put the code in, then we'll go back and we'll talk about all of it. We want to be able for the new user to pluck out, so to speak, and pull out both those two fields for a new user. All right, both their username and their password. So I'm going to create variables here. So let username, and I'm just going to set it equal to nothing, the empty string. And let password, and I'm going to set that also equal to the empty string. All right. Then we're going to say const data equal req.flash data 0. All right. And in English, what that is going to do, all right, in English, what that is going to do is it's going to grab the username. The 0th component is the first thing that we put in there, and since we've got it as username password, that's the way that it is. So I'm going to come in here and I'm going to put an if statement. So again, this is supposing I did actually put values in these. All right, one more thing we've got to do, we'll do it in just a second, but I want to make sure everybody has a chance to be with me here. All right. All right. So you get the request, you get the response, you come in and you do all this. Now, if for some reason it is equal to undefined, we're not going to do this. That should make sense, but we're still down here. Does that make sense? Because we haven't said to return or anything else. All right? So if this is the case, we can come in here then and we can say username, password, password. Probably could get away with only putting it in there once. I'm not even going to take a chance because it worked when I did it before. So I added that. Again, in an ideal world, what's going to happen in a couple minutes is when we attempt to put in a new user and we screw up, so we put in a password and not a username or vice versa, it's going to keep that information in there that we did put in. Okay? Now remember, we're not doing anything as far as, and I'm not going to even go back there, but we talked about Mongoose Validation, and we could set up the password so it had to be between 6 and 12 characters, for example. That it could, that it had to have this and it had to have that. We could put that stuff in there. We're not. All right? So I'm going to save this, and I'm going to close this, and I'm going to go to under our views, I'm going to go to the register view right now. You already know what this is. We've looked at this view. We've done several things inside of this view. All right? Now, the magic that we want to have happen, so to speak, is going to be in here, and it's going to be in here. Now, you don't have to do this, but I'm going to hit enter because I want to put these on each one of these on their own line just so you can see what I'm about to do. All right? You don't have to do this. It's not making the program run any better, so to speak. But there's a reason that I'm doing it, and I'm doing it this way. All right? You may or may not realize this. Hopefully we talked about this back in the days of AWD 1000. But if I come in here, and you can do it anywhere, but I'm just going to do it right here. If I come in and say value equal, and I put in there that should retain that value of that username. So again, if I put in the username and not the password, or I put in the password and not the username, that value should still be in there. All right? And now I'm going to take this thing, I'm going to copy it to the clipboard, and I'm going to put it down here, except I'm going to change it now, as you probably guessed, come on. I'm going to change it now in here. I'm going to change this one down below from username to password. Does what's happening here make sense to everybody? All right. We want, again, to be able to retain those values. All right. Does everybody have that? All right. So I'm going to come in here and I'm going to do this. Okay. I'm going to do a file save. I'm just going to leave it right there, and I'm going to go back to the program here, and I'm going to refresh. All right? And now I'm going to go in and try to put in a new user. And I'm going to put in here Mike, but I'm not going to put in a password. You with me? All right? So I click send, and I get please enter a password, and notice that Mike is still there. Does that make sense? All right? So let's try it and see if it works the other way. I'm going to say hello here, but I'm going to get rid of Mike. All right, but the password is still in there. I'm going to click send, and I get please enter a unique username, and the password is still in there. Does what we just did make sense to people? Did you have to do that? No. But again, as the size of your form could potentially grow, that becomes more and more important. I don't know if you've ever done that, where you filled out an internet type of form, and you miss one field. All right, I mean, if it was a big form with 15 fields in it, and you missed one, and you sent it, you got an error message, and all 15 were removed, I wouldn't be happy. All right? And again, this is just, it's not that we have to do this, for lack of better words, it's a little nicety that we are providing. Okay? All right. So, jumping back into the program then, all right, I'm going to do a file save, and I don't need this file anymore for now, so I'm going to close it. Now, what we want to do next is we want to be able to come in, and we're going to have to make a couple changes here. I want you to understand something. If you look up on the screen here, if I go to the home page, I think you'd agree. See, when you look at these, see these? They're not posted by anybody. Does that make sense? So in other words, we put all of that stuff out there, and we put it all out there before we started, before we cared about who they were being posted by. None of these are posted by anybody. All right? So I'm going to show you, and it's sort of a kludgy way, but a real fast way that we're going to be able to fix that. All right? Okay. So the first thing that we want to do then is we want to go into our models blogpost.js file. So that's what I want you to bring up next, please. All right? So in here, we want to go into models. Close some of these. There we go. And we want to bring up the blog post one. All right? And this is fine, etc. All this stuff is fine up till a certain point. That is, right now, we've got username, and we've got that as being a string. We're going to change that right now from username to user ID. All right? And I'm going to get rid of this. I'll keep the comma. All right? I'll keep the comma, but I'm going to put it in like that. So we're going to add some stuff in here right now. All right? And what? Well, the type here is going to be mongoose.schema.types.object ID. What it's referring to, or its reference, is user, and we still want it to be required. So I'll let you put that in, and then we'll go back and talk about what we just did. All right? So what was changed was all the stuff that's here in blue. And of course, when you're done, make sure to save, okay? All right, so what we're doing there is we're letting the system know that rather than having a string here for the user, and worrying about that for the username, we are going to associate their ID that gets created in the database in the user table. That's how they're going to be associated. All right, and that's what we're doing here. This is the table we're referring to. All right, and it is required still, was required before. So we have changed all of that stuff. All right. As far as I know, everything else in here should be okay at least. So I'm going to do a file, save, and I'm going to close this. All right. Now, making that change is going to necessitate some other changes. Okay. First is we're going to go into our controllers. We're going to go into our home controller, which is right here. All right. And the change we have to make, it's actually at least seems kind of minimal, but we have to come on to the end of this line right here in line 4. So in line 4, we have to come in and say populate user ID. Oops, wait a minute. It is dot populate, I think. Yep, dot populate. Okay. Why? Because now we're telling it to find it. Before we were finding it by username. Now we're finding it by the ID. All right. As far as I know, everything else in here is okay. So I'm going to do a file, save, and I'm going to close this. Okay, good. All right. Okay, next we're going to open up our index.ejs file, all right, which is basically the equivalent of our home page or whatever you want to call that. So under views, we've got index.ejs. All right, okay. And we want to go and find that thing that says posted by. If you remember, that's down here. If yours is similar to mine, in fact, there it is. See where it says posted by? So it's down near the bottom. We've already added some stuff to it already. We're going to just add one more thing to that right now. And that is where we've got the username right here. Everybody see that line? Can you find that line on your code? Put here user ID dot username. All right. Now, if we save the program right now and ran it, we'd get an error because all of our posts right now don't have this. They've got a username, but they don't have a user ID, all right? Because we didn't save it like that before. Now, there's easy ways and there's hard ways to fix this. And I'm going to show you, again, it may be almost considered a hack, so let me just do a save on here and close this. But this may seem like a hack, but I'll show you the easiest way to fix that. And that is, we're going to blow away all of our data. And there's different ways of doing it, but I want to show you the easiest way of doing it. That is, I'm going to come up here into server.js, and hopefully by now, we're all confident what this means. All right? This is basically establishing our connection to Mongo. All right? It's using the default port, and if that database didn't exist before, we're creating it now. Does that all make sense to everybody? Well, I'm just going to come here, and I'm going to put a 2 there, because now it's going to create a brand new one that's going to end up being empty. All right? As opposed to having to try to go in there and clean out all that information. Now, maybe that's easier, maybe that's harder, I don't know, but that's just the way that I did it. Okay? All right. And I'm going to save that. So again, another file, save, and I'm going to close that. All right. Okay. Let's see. Next, and again, I'm trying to be complete here because I know that when we were working on this yesterday, we had stuff going up and down, including me. So I'm going to bring up the show one post controller right here, this one. All right? And this is what yours should look like right now. But we've got to make a similar change right here, and that is we've got to come here. Let me close that. We've got to come here and say dot populate, and then put in here user ID. So part of the mystery, etc., of working with this is just always trying to make sure when you change something somewhere that you change it somewhere else. All right? Now, just to tell you real quick, you probably don't care, but I'm just going to mention it to you. Yesterday when I was going through this myself, and when I did one of these, I did an REQ dot something. Unknown to me, when I did the REQ, what ended up taking over, so if I come in here, you don't do this because I'm going to remove it right away. But if I type in REQ, it put this in instead of REQ. And since it put that in, I never realized it. And it was throwing errors in other files. It didn't throw an error in that file. So I was being a good little boy, and I was trying to go and debug it all the way down. And I was like, okay, there's nothing in that that's worked all the time. I haven't had any problems with it. But I looked at it anyway, went to the next one. And finally I got to this. I said, what the heck is that? And I looked at it, well, that should be REQ dot. But for some reason, when I put that in, so I mean, as always, you just got to be careful. I wasn't. Yeah.
Is dot populated?
No, it's populate. Thank you. Thank you. Yes, it's populate, not populated. Thank you. All right. Now, if it makes you feel any better, I actually foolishly wrote populated on here, on the example. Okay. So,
Make sure I have it right.
no, you're right. I was wrong. All right. So, let's do this then. See right now whether or not this works. So I'm going to do a file save, and I'm going to close this. All right. Then I'm going to go back to my program here, and I'm going to refresh. Okay. And notice what's in here, because I actually put a couple. See that? By Jeff. All right. So just to show you that, I should be able to go in now and do a login. All right. And let's see if we can see if this works. So I'm going to put in Bob and Bob. All right. So hopefully at least. Don't hang. Come on. Don't do that. Oh, my goodness. All right. Maybe I didn't have a Bob, but I don't know. So login. How about Mike and Mike? If the same thing happens, I don't even know what to tell you. Yeah, now it's hanging. Let's see if I can do Jeff and Jeff again. Oh, I know what the problem is. I had a Jeff. When I put in the new database, it removed those users from there. All right, so log in. Doesn't even probably going to show Jeff now. All right, so let's go in and try to put in a new user. All right, new user.
Every single one of them gets refused to connect.
All right. Well, I don't know what the problem is. I did it before and it worked just fine. So let's see. Go back to the home here. I've done everything and I've done everything right. All right. As always, because we don't have that much more to do right now, I'm going to continue on, see if I can debug it during the break. All right? All right. I'd like everybody, please, to go to your new post controller, which is right here. Not real much in this. Okay? Now, you may remember this from yesterday. Yours may or may not look like this. It may look a little different. This was that thing that we had yesterday. All right? This is basically what, excuse me, what we want to be able to do with that create post. This is going to allow us basically to open up the avenue of communication or whatever you want to say with it. All right? And like I said, I've been happy up until that point where that stopped working. But see if we can fix that during the break. Now, one thing that I did, I mentioned this to you yesterday, but I want to show you something that's problematic about it, and that is this. Yesterday I went out and I tried to find what did you see is what you get, editor, bootstrap, 5. All right, and I started to look in here. I wanted to give you an editor you could just drop in, copy a little bit of code, and not have to do anything else with it. All right? So what I found was Summer Note. You don't have to go out here. All right? But what I did was I found this thing here called Summer Note. And it wasn't hard. You go down here, you go down to the Getting Started page, okay? You go down and you grab this stuff that's in here that says include JS and CSS, and you just drop it into the program, okay? And this is what I was going to have you do. The problem is when you look at it, it says for Bootstrap 4 without Bootstrap, and there was a Bootstrap 3 in here. And what I was trying to do was based loosely off of an example that I'd found online, but they were using Bootstrap 4. So I thought, well, is there a problem with this with Bootstrap 5? So I started looking and Googled that, and they're not supporting Bootstrap 5 yet. All right? So if you want to go in and add an editor to this, you can, but you don't have to. Does that make sense to everyone? All right. Because that was a lot of the stuff that I was going to have you do, but you don't have to do it anymore. Okay? All right. Now, right now, our machine is acting as both the client and the server. That should make sense to everyone. And this only works if we have this Mongo shell up and running. Now, if your Mongo shell isn't running, you're going to get errors when you try to run the program. I think everybody knows that. All right. Well, the time has come where we're going to at least try to change that. Now, I'm not sure if I have an account where I'm about to have you go or not. So let me put this in. All right, I want everybody to go to mongodb.com/cloud/atlas. All right, and I'll make it nice and big, so if you do need to see it, or you can't read what's up there, I'll fix that for you. Get it out of here and put it here. There we go, right there. mongodb.com/cloud/access. All right. Now, Atlas is basically the way we're gonna attempt, at least between Atlas and Compass in just a few minutes, to replicate our database and have it where once we push our project out to the internet using Heroku, we're going to be able to access that database. Does that make sense to everybody? All right. So, this was where I asked you to go, and it should look like this. All right. Now, we're going to sign up in just a minute, but when you start to go through it, this is the stuff you're going to see. We're basically going to select almost every, if not every, default there is. AWS, because they just let you work on it for free. So does Google Cloud, so does Azure, but we're just going to select AWS. Then it's going to come down and ask the region of the country you're in. You want to always make sure when you do that, there'll be one or two that'll say free tier. In other words, we're not going to charge you. You want to choose one of those. The one that should come up first, they'll say like N Virginia for Northern Virginia or something like that. That's the one that we'll want to choose. All right. So I think you're going to come in here and do the Get Started Now. All right. So it says Get Started for free. Now, again, I may have this already. So if I get an error, I'm not worried about it. All right. And again, this is the kind of thing that if you aren't good at remembering your password, you'd probably want to make sure that you write it down or do whatever. All right, so I click Continue. Now, it looks like I don't, and that's fine. So it says About You. All right, I'll put in my first name. I'll put in my last name. And you should be able to just leave that company optional. It's because it's optional. But I'm just going to put down Rankin Technical College. All right, if you want to leave yours blank, go ahead and do that. It shouldn't matter. But as you'd probably guess, you do have to agree to the terms and privacy policy. And then click Create Account. All right, notice it does say, mine is already in use, so I've already created mine. Yours, you shouldn't have one. unless you've done something, that I don't know about. All right, so it says already have an account, sign in. So that's what I want to do. All right. So hopefully you've done all that stuff and you're able to sign in. Now the problem I'm going to have is the same thing I told you about, and that is I'm going to put in jpscott@rankin.edu. Now it's going to ask me for my password. Now hopefully that password is correct. All right. It's not. Of course it's not. All right. And as you can see, I've got a bunch of them in here. All right. I could go to my manage passwords, but I'm just going to try this. Couldn't be that easy. All right. So they're asking for a reset password. I'm going to give it that. And I'm going to have to check. There it is. Password reset. So you can see, if nothing else, it's fairly easy to change it if you need to. So. Hopefully I put the same one in for both. All right, it says it's been successfully done. That's good. All right. Now, one thing about this is if you do forget it like this, okay, notice it says it's going to email me, and it will. So I'm going to say send code. And now when I look here again, okay, there's the code. So I double click on the code, and now I've got to take the code and paste it in here. All right, hit enter. And now I'm in. All right. Now, with yours, I'm not sure because it's been so darn long. You may have to log out and log back in again, but I'd like you to try to get to where I am right now. All right. Like I said, you may have to log out and log back in again. I don't remember how it works just because it's been over a year since I've done this. That's no excuse. I'm just being honest with you. All right. Are you?
Okay, I apparently already had an account, so I altered that. This is.
You're actually ahead of everybody.
Oh, really?
Yes.
I don't know where.
Okay. I didn't think I had you guys do anything like this before. I don't know.
I think we went here together, and I must have thought that we needed to sign up, so I did.
Okay. Have you been able to get here? Have you been able to get here?
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, those captchas are a lot of fun, aren't they?
That's the picture one.
Yeah.
Looked like she had mountains. I usually have buses.
I usually
all the
have
time.
buses and crosswalks.
Does the street light count if it's only like a tiny sliver?
Like for the
Yeah,
pole.
I know it. I don't know. All right. What we want to do is where it says visit MongoDB Atlas. Okay? So I'm clicking right there. Now that should be pretty close to where you are. Maybe not exactly, but it should be pretty close to where you are.
Like Atlas, Realm, Charts tab. Yeah.
Now, I don't know what each of yours looks like, especially yours, but down here, my guess is you probably don't have this stuff that I've got here, because you probably have not yet signed up for a cluster. All right, what's called a cluster. All right, so what I guess I'm asking, you want to say the one that's free. Yeah, you want the free one. That's what yours is, create a database? Yeah, that's what they'll be in just a minute. All right, so did you have a thing up there that said Angie had a button here that said create a database or an option. Choose that one. Then it should come up, and like I showed you before, it should have AWS there as one of your options. AWS and Google and something else. I don't remember what it is. I think it's Azure. Choose AWS, so click on that. And then down below that, choose the N Virginia, because that one should say free tier on it. All right? Everybody still with me?
I don't see it.
No, you probably have done it already.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. All right. Now, I watched a couple videos on this, and everybody else said that you could just go all the way down to the bottom and choose Create Cluster. Another one that was there, all right, said that there was another setting that you had to put in. I didn't put that setting in that they said, and mine works just fine. I've used it before. So you should be able to go all the way down, and there should be a button, hopefully, down in the bottom right that says Create Cluster. Do you see that? All right, then click that button. Now, good, bad, or indifferent, we're going to take a break a little early because that takes 7 to 10 minutes to create the cluster. You all with me? All right. So there's a few more things that we're going to have to do, but we might as well wait. All right. I don't know because we're going to have to go into database access and a network access, but the recommendation is you have your cluster up and running first. Now, that cluster, basically, that's the name that's going to hold all of your databases. All right? And I shouldn't even, that's going to hold every, it's a collection of databases. Now, you could have renamed that, but cluster 0 is just the default name, okay? So, and again, like I said, that's the name that I have. So, let's take a break. It's 12:55. Let's just plan on 15 minutes, just in case with some of yours, I know your connections and stuff take longer. So let's come back, please, at 1:10, and we'll see if we can finish this part of it up. While you're doing that, I'm going to look at my...
renaming the cluster or something?
It should be called Cluster 0 by default. All right? So like I said, I'm going to attempt to look at my notes, but I'm trying to think of what the heck I could have done wrong here, but evidently it was something. All right.
There's a button that